Welcome back to the channel The Growing Developer. Today's topic is one of the most demanded topic. Many of you have requested in the comment section to upload a video for the Sqflite plugin. So here I am with the tutorial, and in this tutorial we'll learn all the basics about the Sqflite plugin and how we can integrate local database into our application. So I was searching through the internet and I saw many tutorials. None of the tutorials were actually satisfactory and we're using very complex structures. So I'll be following a very simple structure so that it is easy for you to understand. Once you get familiar with the structure, you can move forward with the complex queries, right? So for the prerequisites, as you can see in my possible.YAML, I've used two plugins. One is Sqflite and the other is Path Provider. So go to your possible.YAML and add these two plugins into your Flutter project. Now after that, nothing else. I've created a scaffold and an app bar with the title Sqflite example. That's it. So let's move into the coding part, and we have to create a database helper class first. Now why are we using the database helper? What is the use of path provider plugin? And we'll discuss all about that while we code. So let's start integrating the local database into our application.
The Growing Developer.
First things first, we have to first create our database helper class. Why are we creating a database helper class? Because we can encapsulate all the functions into that class, and later on we can refer to that class to call all the CRUD operations for our database, right? So go to your lib folder and we'll create a new dot file, and I'll name it as database helper. In this file, we'll create a class and name it as database helper. Right now, first thing is to make this class a singleton class. So why am I making it a singleton class? Because for the whole life cycle of our Flutter application, we want only one instance of the database. So that's why we are creating it a singleton class. Now there are many methods to create a singleton class. The easiest method that I find is by creating a private constructor out of it. So how to create a private constructor? We'll write database helper dot private constructor. Which keyword will you use to make anything static and constant? That is a final keyword, that is the value cannot be changed. So I'll write static final, that is once it is initiated, nothing else, it will not be changed. So for the whole application life cycle, we'll be having only one instance of this database helper class. After that, we'll write database helper instance, that is instance of type database helper will be equal to database helper dot private constructor. This way we have created an instance of this database helper. See, whenever you need to create an instance of any class, you call its constructor. Normally what we do is we write like database helper db equals to new database, right? Wait a minute. Right, that's how we create a object. Now in this case we are creating a constructor, and the constructor is static, final as well as private, right? So next we have to initialize the database. That is, you need to add some function that will be initializing the database. Now we need to understand some terminologies before initializing the database. We need to have some sort of table, we need to have some sort of database name, we need to have some sort of database version. So let's quickly create variables for that, because we might be using those again and again. So it's better to create a variable and then use the variable rather than hard coding the name again and again, right? So above this, I'll create a static final database name, and now you can give any name you want. So in my case, I'll be giving it my database.db. Don't forget to add this .db, because this is the extension of the database. This helps the plugin, this helps the application to decide that this is the database that we are talking about. You can name any file, so .db ensures that you are talking about the database, right? Now next thing is the database version. So it will be db version, and for the db version I'll be giving it a value of 1. Now see that I am not giving any kind of type to it, because it will automatically take the type that is given first to it, right? Now after that, let's initialize our database. So how to initialize the database? One thing to note here is that the return type, that the type of the database is database, that is we have a database class inside this Sqflite dot package. Database, let's make it a private one. So that's it, a static database. Right, done. Why am I creating everything static here? Because I want these values to be accessed using the class name. So understand this, that initially the database will be null, that is our database will be null as the application is run first time in any device or is installed first time in any device. So for that, let's create a getter. It will be of type future database, right? And it will be getter. I'll write database, and it will be async. Why I'm writing the asynchronous keyword? Because it might take some time to get the database here, right? Now it is clear that this function will be returning us the database. This thing should be clear in your mind, that this function will return our database, that is this value, right? So it should be returning the database that we have just created or initiated, right? So we'll be returning database. One thing to note here, what is the value of underscore database here? This is null, that is this database is yet to be initiated. So we have to put some conditions here. So we'll write if this database is not null, that is if it is not null, then only return this database. Otherwise what we're going to do is we'll write database. We have to initialize it, right? We have to create our new database into a local directory. So how we're gonna do it? We'll write database equals to await initiate database. Now this initiate database is function that is yet to be created, and after that we'll be returning the database. Let's review this function once again. If the database is not null, then only return this value. Otherwise, initiate the database and then return the returned value from this function. Now we have to create this function. I'll write initiate database assign, and there you go, the error is gone, but we need to write some logic inside this, right? So how we do it? We'll write directory. Now once I write directory, you can see that this file is getting imported .io. So for input and output we use this library, and directory equals to await get application documents directory. Now what does this function do? Now this function is from the path provider package. You can see that these packages are automatically imported. Now these files are used to get the documents directory. That is, you might have seen in your PCs also that you have the documents folder, you have the downloads folder. So those are the directories that are by default given to the system. So similarly in our mobile systems also we have our default documents directory where all the applications local data is stored, as well as we have the download directory. So you can play with the directories that you want. I'll be using the documents directory here. Now let's create our path variable. So it will be string path equals to. Now you may be able to guess the path. What will be the path? It will be the documents directory plus the file name. So we'll be using the join function. Now this join function, we have to import the path package. So let's quickly import the path package from the path file, and there you go. You can see that the error is now gone. Now what this join function will do is that it will join the file name with the path that we get from this directory, right? So the path will be directory dot path comma the db name. Now the whole path becomes whatever the documents directory is plus the file name, right? Now next thing is to open the database. The open database function inside in the Sqflite plugin will automatically initialize the database for you, as well as it will open the database for you. So how we do it? We write await open database. Now why am I using await again and again? Because all these functions need some time to be executed, right? So await open database to the path, that is where to open the database. We have given the path, this path, go to the documents directory and the database name and open the database there. After giving the path, we need to give some database version. Why do we give version? So that we keep track of which version to use. As the complexity of the application increases, we need to maintain some versions for the database. For simplicity, for learning purpose, we have created only one version, right? So we'll give the version, so it will have the parameter as version. So inside this I'll give it a db version. Now after that, it has some parameter known as onCreate, that is what to do once the database is created. Done. When the database is created, as soon as the database is created, you want to make a table into it. Done. Hope you are able to understand this. What is the use of database without any tables? So you need to have some kind of initial table onto it. On create method call, I'm gonna create another function. Now this on create method is yet to be created. Don't worry, we'll create it right now, and we'll create the on create function. So it will be again a future. Wait a minute, it is on create. Now you can see that we still get the error. Why? Because it will be given some kind of parameters and we have not given any parameter. On create method will return two parameters, as you can see from here, that first one will be the database and second is the integer, that is the version value. So we'll write database db comma int version. That makes sense. Now this database will be returned from this open database command. As you can see that we are yet to return the database from here. So we'll write return statement here. Understand the flow. Here we are getting the database. Now if the database is null, if the database is not null, we'll be returning the database as it is. If the database is null, then what we are going to do is will be creating a new database, calling the initial database function, and in this initiate database function we are creating a new documents directory. We are joining the path and then we are opening the database, and this open database function in turn returns the database that is created, and that database we are returning. I might be very fast, you can slow up the video speed and understand the stuff. Once the database is created, we need to make a new table. So how to do this? You can see that we have got the database that is created. So we'll write db.query. Now inside this query, we need to pass the query that will create the database, right? So I'll write three single quotes and once again three single quotes. Why am I using three single quotes? Now this way I can write any string in multiple lines. So it will treat all the string as So it will treat all the lines as a single string, right? So let's quickly start write the command. So the command is create table. Now comes the table name. So what is our table name? So let's create our new table name here. So I'll write static final table name, and it will be maybe my table. Let's create a table name with a my table. So I want to use this value here. So how to interpolate strings? I'll write $, and inside this I'll write table name. Done. Create table name, and now you have to specify the column name, that is what will be the heading, the titles of all the rows. So in our case I'll be using only ID and name, right? So let's quickly create the column name here. So it will be static final column ID and static final column name. Now these are the fields that I'm giving to the table, that is the titles that will be given to the table. So ID would be like ID, and for the column name I'll be using name. So it will create a table with two columns. One is with the name of underscore ID and the other will be with the name of name. Done. Now create table name, that is create table my table, and now we'll write the columns. So it will be $, column ID. And what do you want the column ID to be? You always want the ID to be a primary key. So I'll write integer. It will be of integer type and a primary key. Now next thing will be the column name. Now this column name will be a text value and it should never be null. And well, that's it. Okay, one second, you have to give some parentheses to it. Now this is the complete command, right? So let me just arrange it so that there you go. So create table, the table name, and inside the parentheses you have to give the column name and the data type for the columns. Done. Now this will create our own table inside our application. So we will have the table with the name my table and the columns will be like this, right? Now as you can see that we have initialized our database, and on created we have created our new table. Done. Now next is the insert, delete, update, and the query command, right? So how to get the data that is inside the table, how to insert the data inside this table, how to update any preceding values, and how to delete any values. So let's see. Now let's understand all the four functions that we have inside our Sqflite plugin. We have the insert, we have the update command, we have the delete, as well as we have the query command. Now what does query do? Query will return a list of map. That means our database table values will be kind of like this: ID and the ID, respective ID, and then the name, respective name. So this will be the structure of the values that will be getting in return of the table. So the table values will be returned in this format. So the table structure will be kind of this, right? So whenever we're gonna insert anything, whenever we're gonna insert any values to the table, it must be passed as a type of map. Whenever we're gonna retrieve something from the table, we're gonna get in form of this. In case of deleting, we'll be only passing the parameters. So in our case, it will be the ID to be deleted. Don't worry, I'll show you one by one. So let's quickly create the insert function. So I'll write future int insert. Now you might be asking that why am I using the integer value here? Because whenever you will be creating a new value to the database, you will not be providing this ID. Now this ID needs to be primary, and now this ID will be auto generated, incremented by 1 each time you will be inserting anything. Now this way it ensures that all the values are unique. Done. Now as a parameter to this insert command, will be passing a map of type string and dynamic row. Understand this? As I told you earlier in this video that the data that will be inserting should be in the form of map, so we are creating this map. Now this insert function will take up a map as a parameter and will perform the insert functions on the database. How to call the insert function of the database? We need to get the database first, so we'll write database db equals to await instance dot database. From the present instance, get the database. Now once this command is run, instance.database, this getter will be called, and once this getter is called, we'll create our own database, because at present our database is null, so it will initiate the database and the database will be created. After that, we'll be calling the insert command from this db dot insert table and the values. So what will be the values? It will be the row that we are passing from the calling, so it will be row. And what will be the table? It will be our table name. That's why I created a new variable for the table name, because we might be using it again and again. So I'll write table name. There you go. We have inserted the some values to it. Now how to get the primary key? We have to return it from it. Now once this insert command is successfully executed, it will be returning the primary key, or we can say that the unique ID automatically generated. That's all about the insert command. Now let's go and quickly write the, what is the another command? The query command, right? So I'll write query all. You need not to pass anything to this query all function, because we need to simply get all the rows from the database, right? Now what will be the return type of this function? It will be a list of maps, right? So in our case, suppose we have multiple rows in our table, so all the rows will be in the form of maps. So it will be returning a list, and the list will be of type map. The map in turn is of type string comma dynamic. I hope you are able to understand this, and of course the async keyword needs to be there. After that, we'll copy this command from here and paste it as it is, because we'll be getting the present database instance, and from there we'll return the result that we get from the query command. So write db dot query, and it will normally take the table name. So in our case it is the table name. That's it. It will query all the rows that are present in our table. Done. Now next function is our update function. So we'll write future update asynchronous keyword, of course, and we'll copy this line once again, because we are, see, that's why we created this class as a singleton class, because we are using the same instance again and again, right? So once we update, now how are we gonna update it? For updating anything, you will be giving some kind of data to it. So we need to pass the ID, that is to which ID you need to update the command, as well as the value, the updated value. So this will again take up a map as a parameter, and the map will be of type string comma dynamic, and this will be row. Now the row you need to be updated, you will be passing it here. Okay, now we need to done. Now let's see how we're gonna update it. So we'll write db.update. Now this will again return the integer value, that is the key of the data to be updated, right? So it will be table name, right? Values will be row. Done. Now this will update the specific row, but there has to be some sort of parameter as to which row, as to which column IDs has to be updated. So for that we have some parameter inside it, that is where column ID equals to question mark. Why am I putting a question mark? That is, I'll be passing the ID here inside this where arguments. See, you can always give multiple arguments to a where clause, that is where ID is this and name is this. So I'll write, so for that I'll write like where column ID is this and column name is this. This list will follow the order of these question marks. That is, first thing that you enter in this list and the second thing that you enter in this list will be automatically replaced by these question marks, right? So first question mark will be replaced by 1 and the second question mark will be replaced by Sahib here. Done. So in our case we don't want to change any column name, or we need not to check to the column name parameters. So inside this I'm gonna pass the ID. Now where is this ID? We have not yet created the ID. Now tell me one thing, once you return once you pass any data to it, suppose you are passing this to be updated, how will you be getting the ID? Yes, from this value, right? So we'll write int ID equals to row column ID. I hope you are able to understand this. Once we will be creating the UI part, you will understand it even better. So that's for the update command, that is we'll be fetching the ID of the row that you have passed. Suppose you are passing ID 12 and name Sahib, that is presently the name is Mark. Suppose presently the name is Mark. Now you want the name to be changed to Sahib. So we'll write that for the ID 12 name Sahib. So we'll write, you will pass the updated value. So what I'm gonna do is, from this map that you have passed, that is from this row, I'll fetch the ID. So ID will be passed from the column ID parameter, and we'll update that from where column ID is this, that is the ID, update the values. Done. Now after this update command is also a future, so we have to write the await here. Why await? Because update command still will take some time and will be returning. Now once this update command is successfully executed, it will return the ID of the updated command. That is, suppose the ID is 12, so it will return 12. That is, the record with ID 12 is being updated. Done. Now next is our delete command. Now this will again be an asynchronous function, and this will also return a future of integer type. Now for the delete command, you will just gonna pass the ID, that is just delete the record which is having this ID, right? So we'll write, first of all we'll get the database instance, and then after that we'll write return, that is we'll be returning the deleted ID. So I'll write db dot delete the table name, so it will be the table name, comma, what do we have, where. So inside this where, it will be same as the update command, that is column ID equals to question mark. And what will be replaced to the question marks? It's inside the where arguments, the ID that we just passed. Done. That's all for the database helper class. So it was quite simple. I hope you are able to understand all the concept that we have discussed here. Now it's the time to move to the UI part. I'll tell you how we are gonna pass the values to these functions so that the respective commands are executed, right? So let's move on to the UI part. This was all about the database helper part. Now inside this UI, what we're gonna do is, for the body, I'm just gonna pass a column, and inside this column as a children, I'm gonna pass a flat button with on pressed as some sort of function, and the child will be text, insert, copy it and paste it 4 times, save it. You can see that we have four buttons here. So first one will be insert, second will be query, third will be update, and fourth will be delete. So we have all the 4 buttons. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this column into a center so that everything is in center. There you go. For the color part, let me just give it a color so that they are actually visible. There you go. You can see that I have created the 4 buttons and given it some colors. You are able to identify which button is for what purpose. For the main access element, I'll just pass it to center. So we have all the four buttons. First button will do the insert operation, second will do the query operation, third one will do the update operation, and the last one will do the delete operation, right? Now tell me how we're gonna do the insert operation. I'll not be creating any different functions for it. I'll be writing the stuff here only. You can also create another functions if you want more than enough modularity, right? So an insert command will be so it's quite simple, right? We have created our database helper class. Inside this database helper class, we're just gonna call this insert function and pass the row that we need. Now what are the different columns that we have? We only have the ID and the name. Now tell me one thing, do we really need to pass this ID? The answer is no. This ID will be auto generated as it is the primary key. So we'll write database helper dot instance dot insert, right? Now this row you have to pass the map here. So what will be the column name? You can see that the column name here is name. You can either write the name directly or you can also write the variable, right? So you can use the variable here. So we'll write database helper dot column name, right, and the value that you want to be inserted. So in first case I'll be writing Sahib, right? That's it, done. So after this, once this insert function is executed, what we're gonna get in return, go to insert function and see, you'll be getting an integer value. So let's just catch the integer value. So I'll write int I equals to await. You need to add a synchronous keyword here. Await I. Now let's print this I. So I'll write the inserted ID is, and then just simply write the ID here. The inserted ID is the ID that we get in return from there. It's like done. So once this function is executed, we'll get the inserted ID. So let's check it, right? So I'm just going to restart this application. Now let's restart this application and see if this method is working or not. If we just press this button, let's see what happens. We get some sort of exception. So let's see where is the problem. No such table, my table. So let's go to our database helper class and okay. So here you need to use the execute function. I accidentally used the query function. That's my mistake. So you'll write the execute function here. Let's restart this application once again. So we have fixed the error, restarted our application, and if I press on this, you can see that the inserted ID is 13. I have already pressed this button 3 times, so you might have kind of, you can say that 2 or 3 records already present there. So next thing is, let's just get the details, right? So how to get all the details? So inside this on pressed, what we're going to do, it's the same thing. Now what will be the return type of our query function? It will be a list of maps. So I'll write list map string dynamic. Now, why I'm typecasting all this, you may be familiar to it, and if you are new to it, you can see that I've created a new list of map, and map in turn will have the keys as string and the value dynamic. This is missing, right? So query rows, and after that I'm going to write await database helper dot instance dot query all. That's it, done. And after that we need to print it, so I'll write print query rows. Done. So if I press on query, you can see that we have 3 records and the result is printed as a list. Done. Next, let's move on to the update command. So it will be just same. So it will return an integer value and it will be like updated ID. So in this case, we need to pass the ID that needs to be updated and the updated value. So we'll write await. We need to add the sync keyword here. Sorry for that. Await. It's the same thing, database helper. This way we are getting the instance, and from that instance we are calling the update command. Inside this update command, we need to pass the updated values. Understand this, we need to pass the updated value. So I'll write database helper dot column ID. Which column ID to be updated? Not equal to, it will be column. So I want to update this name, that is the name with ID 12. So for 12, I'm gonna write the name should be Mark, right? That's it, done. Now we'll just print the updated ID, right? Save it, and if I just press this update button, you can see that one is getting printed. Now what is this one? Sorry, I told you that it will return the updated ID. No, it will return the number of rows that are affected. So there was only one row which was with the ID 12, so it only returned 1, right? So if I just query, and you can see that now the second row, that is the second value, is having name as Mark. So the records are successfully updated. Now next thing is the delete command. Now inside this delete, it is the same thing, right? So it will be int rows affected. Now this will also give the rows affected, and it will be right await. I always forget to add the sync keyword here. So await database helper dot instance dot delete, and this delete will take the ID. So I want to delete the last record, that is the ID which is having 13 as an ID, right? So I'll write 13 only, and after that we'll just print the rows affected. Now this rows affected should also be a 1, right? So save it, and if I run it, you can see that 1 is getting printed. Now if I query, you can see that we have only 2 records. So I guess I'm gonna wrap it for this video. Hope you learned something from this video. Hope you're clear with all the concepts of database, and please write in the comments how you feel about this video, and if I'm actually able to clear all your doubts. I tried to make it as simple as possible, because all the internet was covered with all the internet was populated with all kind of complex stuff. So I tried to make it as simple as possible. For any kind of doubts, you can always write in the comments. You can always connect me through Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, however you want. It's in the descriptions. All the links are in the descriptions. Hope you like the video. Thank you so much for watching this video, and stay safe, stay at home, and please like the video and subscribe the channel if you haven't done already. Share the video with your friends. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
The growing developer.